after so many people have been so badly hurt, after not looking at the other side, where a lot of bad things happened, a lot of horrible things happened, a lot of very bad things happened for our country. It was just announced there was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration. It's a shame that our country had to go through this. To be honest, it's a shame that your president has had to go through this before I even got elected. It began. And it began illegally. And hopefully somebody's going to look at the other side. This was an illegal takedown that failed. And hopefully somebody's going to be looking at the other side. So it's complete exoneration, no collusion, no obstruction. Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is a Fox News alert. Again, Robert Mueller has submitted his report on the Russia investigation to Attorney General William Barr. The special counsel has been probing alleged Russia interference in the 2016 election for the past 21 months. The move now setting up a potential showdown over how much of it will be made public. Barr has indicated he's likely to send his own summary of the findings to Congress rather than Mueller's actual report, while Democrats have threatened to subpoena Mueller to testify publicly about what he found. Mueller's team has either indicted, convicted, or gotten guilty pleas from 34 people and 3 companies, including 6 former Trump advisors and or associates. Dana, you know, we just don't know who's been indicted, who's been exonerated, but the president, in talking with Maria Bartiromo this morning, says people won't stand for it if it indicates that there was some wrongdoing, because he continues to say it was a witch hunt.
Okay, so I just want to take a little step back and remember that, yes, of course, the media covers the angle like, okay, so was there Trump collusion, Trump involvement, and that has been with the media, and frankly, we have all been talking about. But remember, the genesis of this report wasn't about any bad dealings on behalf of the Trumps. It was about the Russians,
right,
and influence and attempted influence and basically trying to disrupt our elections. And we know from our intelligence agencies and from the Department of Homeland Security that those efforts by the Russians continue to this day, and we are headed into a very important election. So setting aside what it says or doesn't say about how Russia tried to get involved with these people, if there was involvement, et cetera, I think that this report could actually be quite instructive about what we need to do to protect our elections going forward, like how big that threat is. I think that's even more important than anything else, because we, obviously our country is surviving. We're not in a constitutional crisis, but going forward, if people don't trust the outcome of an election, then it really could all fall apart.
That's a great point.
Oh, thank you.
John Roberts is with us now. John?
Good afternoon to you, Juan. We're expecting very shortly a statement from the president's outside attorneys, Jay Sekulow and Rudy Giuliani. I should have it momentarily on my phone. We'll let you know as soon as I get it. Earlier this morning, the president said he had no idea. He was in the dark like the rest of us about when this report might come out, but he did his best as he was leaving for Mar-a-Lago this morning to discredit the Mueller investigation yet again, and whatever the contents of the report might be, again saying that there was no collusion and that there was a witch hunt. Now, we do not know exactly what the process is going to be from here on. We do know that the special counsel's office has delivered this, as it has to by statute, to the Attorney General. The Attorney General will now review it and decide what will be sent to Congress, if anything will be sent to Congress, and what might be made public, if anything will be made public. Barr said during his confirmation hearings that he would do his best to make as much of the report public as he possibly could. There's also a potential here for the White House to get involved. If there is no material in the report that is subject to executive privilege, the White House might not ask to see it. But if there is material contained in the report that is subject to executive privilege, Pat Cipollone, the White House counsel here at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, may put in a request to the Department of Justice to review it, to either waive executive privilege on the items that might be included in it, or to request redactions of the Department of Justice, and then it would be up again to William Barr, the Attorney General, and his team to make those redactions or decide if the redactions are necessary before anything was released to Congress and then to the public. It's also possible, because don't forget, this is all within the same branch of government. The Office of the Special Counsel is appointed by the Department of Justice, which is part of the administration. So this is all under Article 2 of the Constitution, and it would be within the president's purview and his authorization to request to see this report before it goes to Congress. I'm told that that's probably the least likely scenario, but for now, this is in the hands of the Attorney General, and we'll see what William Barr decides to do with it. The president said this morning that he has full faith in the Attorney General and that he believes that he will make the right decision on what to do next. Juan?
John Roberts at the White House. John, thank you very much. Again, to recap for those of you just joining, the Robert Mueller report has been submitted to the Department of Justice. It's now in the hands of Attorney General William Barr. Now we're joined by Catherine Herridge in our Washington Bureau. Catherine?
All right, just in a few minutes, Juan, I'm going to head down to the Justice Department, but we've got some information about kind of the tick-tock of events over the last hour. We have confirmed that a letter was sent to the chairman and ranking members of the Senate and House Judiciary Committees notifying them that the special counsel Robert Mueller investigation was completed. Let me just read for a second from that text. It says, quote, Special Counsel Robert Mueller III has concluded his investigation of Russian interference, but this is the important part. Attorney General William Barr says, quote, he may be in a position to advise you, the committees, of the special counsel's principal conclusions as soon as this weekend. So this is the first time that we've had an indication that the Attorney General may be able to move very quickly in terms of releasing some information and the findings to Congress. What's not in the letter so far that we've seen is a timetable for a public release. This whole process now will be governed by something called 28 CFR 600. That's the Code of Federal Regulations. It's very explicit that the Attorney General receives a confidential report and that there has to be notification to Congress of the findings. It's a little more vague on whether that's a summary from the Attorney General or whether he can include some of the raw data, if you will, from the Mueller report. The other thing that's often neglected in this discussion, which is stipulated in the regulations, is that there is a requirement by the Justice Department to notify Congress of any actions that Special Counsel Robert Mueller wanted to take but was blocked from taking by the Attorney General or an acting Attorney General. So that's the other thing to really watch. So again, to recap, things have moved very quickly in the last hour. My contact said they were notified of a short notice meeting on Capitol Hill, Republicans and Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee, that it would involve the Justice Department. And now we have confirmation of a letter to the ranking members and the chairman on those committees that the Mueller report is now complete. Juan.
Catherine, stay with us. Dan has a question.
Catherine,
Sure.
I did have a question. It might just be a little bit of a timing thing, because when you said that it's possible that the Attorney General could, as soon as this weekend, release something, a couple of weeks ago, there were rumors that this report had been delivered to the Attorney General. Do you think it is possible that that is true, that the Attorney General has had this report, and that is why they're making this announcement late on a Friday night, and that they think that they could turn around something? Because it doesn't seem to me, if he was actually just receiving it, that he could turn something around that quickly by Sunday.
Well, if you look at the regulations, it's very specific about what has to be provided to Congress. It has to provide a cataloging, if you will, of the prosecutions that were brought, and also what they call declinations. So these are decisions not to proceed with criminal prosecutions because they feel they don't have sufficient evidence to do so. That is not a lengthy document that goes into the underlying evidence. And the reason I mention that is that the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein was very clear in a letter to Senator Grassley, the former head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, when he said, in effect, that he didn't want to repeat the same mistakes that were made in 2016, that it's not the department's position to release information that is damaging to individuals who are never prosecuted for any crimes in the future, and that was a reference, and it's cited in the letter, to the former FBI Director James Comey and his decision to publicly discuss the findings in the Clinton email case, but then to recommend against criminal prosecution. So the long answer to your concise question is that when you look at the regulations, it's entirely possible to deliver sort of the bare bones of what's required in a very short time frame. The unknown in all of this is whether the Attorney General William Barr will in fact go further, because he has some discretion to provide additional information, and that he also feels it's within the public interest to do so. And that really was at the heart, if you will, or the main element of his testimony during the confirmation hearings, that he pledged to do that to the extent that he was able, Dana.
Catherine, thanks.